Schmicago, my god, hey everybody, welcome back to my stagey YouTube channel. If you are meeting me for the first time, hello, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre. Why else would I own a bomber jacket with this many sequins on it? This is not just recreational homosexuality, this is specific theatre gay. At least when you couple it with the hat. So for the past few weeks on my theatre-themed YouTube channel, I have been recapping and breaking down the episodes of Schmigadoon Season 2, aka Schmicago, on Apple TV+. If you don't know, Schmigadoon is a TV series that sees an ordinary couple transported into a world of musical theatre, and it is chock full of musical theatre references. Season 1 focused on Golden Age musicals like Carousel, The Sound of Music, and The Music Man, while Season 2 is focusing on a slightly later period of shows like Cabaret, Sweet Charity, Hair, Sweeney Todd, and many more. Now, if you haven't seen the rest of this series, I've been talking through the first 4 episodes. We are on to episode 5, which I think is the penultimate episode, the second last of the series. Things are really beginning to heat up, and so much happened in this episode. We had so much plot to get through, we had some great musical numbers, some of which I'd been expecting, and others of which were very unexpected and very welcome. In amongst this, you had some obvious musical theatre references with some very clear parodies, and then some slightly subtler ones as well. I'm going to do my best to talk you through all of the ones that I noticed while watching this episode. But I'm only human, and unlike the best Pokemon trainers, I do not in fact catch them all. So, if there are any that I don't mention, feel free to comment down below. What was your favourite stagey reference in episode 5 of Schmigadoon Season 2, and which are the ones that I missed? If you enjoyed today's video, I am not the only one recapping this series on YouTube. You can go and check out Mark Bonani, aka Broadway by Ghostlight, and Stealing Focus. Both of their channels are recapping Schmigadoon Season 2 as well, and they're doing a great job. And if you really enjoy my video, make sure to subscribe to my stagey YouTube channel for plenty more content just like this. Look how shiny I am. I'm like a human disco ball. Now let's get straight into it. Schmigadoon Season 2, Episode 5. What happened? Let me bring up my notes. I've written Sweeney da 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 da. What do we think that meant? Oh, so the beginning of this episode started not immediately with Titus Burgess as our leading player from Pippin-esque narrator character reprising the Magic to Do parody song that he's been singing to lead into most episodes, at least not straight away. It first started with Miss Codwell, our Mrs. Lovett / Miss Hannigan from Annie character, fattening up the Orphans, who are this hybrid of Annie and Oliver orphans, in her Sweeney Todd-esque plan that she had cooked up with Alan Cummings' Dooley Blight. And the underscoring at this moment was giving you classic Sweeney da 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 da, the part of the score that pianists worldwide will forever associate with repetitive strain injury. Pretty soon after this, we do have the arrival of Titus, who is singing a decidedly more malevolent twist on the song that he has been singing for the past few episodes, and helpfully he is recapping what's going on with all the characters. Now, in the last recap, I said that I felt like we'd lost track of a few people. What had happened to Patrick Page's Mr. Kratt? What had happened to Anne Harada's Madame Frau? And while Ariana DeBose is still very much missing in action from this season, helpfully Titus brings all of these characters back in and lets us know what's going on with all of them, including Dove Cameron's Jenny Banks, this Sally Bowles-esque character who has grown her hair longer because she is very infatuated with Aaron Tveit hippie leader character, who at this point we've worked out is part Claude from Hair, part Jesus from Godspell, and part Jesus from Jesus Christ Superstar when you get on his bad side. Then we cut to our protagonists Josh and Melissa, who are pretty unaware of the impact of some of their recent actions, and they think everything is going very well. They contemplate leaving Schmigadoon because they think they've achieved a happy ending for everyone, but not before Josh gets to see Melissa performing at the Kratt Club, where she has recently become a part of the roster. And she unexpectedly gets thrown on in place of Jenny Banks, who has not shown up to work. We know this is because she's off being a hippie. A couple of things I notice here. As Melissa is entering through the stage door, she passes someone who she calls Mac. Is this a Mac and Mabel reference? It could be. And he has like a pantomime horse head prop that he's holding. Josh passed a similar half pantomime animal character in the first episode before he discovered the corpse of Elsie, who was reading Mein Kampf. Should we be aware of this? Should we be concerned about this man? Have HR done a background check? These are the questions I'm asking at this point as a concerned viewer. After Madame Frau tells Melissa that she will be performing the solo slot at the afternoon's performance, Melissa looks at herself in a tall mirror, in a shot that is very familiar of Funny Girl and a little bit of Gypsy as well. Think, I'm a pretty girl, mama, I'm a pretty girl, and or hello gorgeous. Now she doesn't say either of those things, that would be too on the nose. But when she does perform on stage, we get references aplenty. Now her hair and wardrobe this entire season has felt like a nod to Barbra Streisand. In my last video, I said that the orange she was wearing was a nod to Barbara's orange outfit in Don't Rain on My Parade, even though the cut of the dress was different. And it turns out I was wrong, because this was actually, as many of you pointed out, a nod to an outfit worn in On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. Now the silhouette of this one, although the fabric is a little less showy in Funny Girl, I think we're back to classic Funny Girl. This purple silhouette, I'm going to do a side-by-side of the outfits I'm talking about on some side of my head here, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this one. But again, if there is a different Barbra Streisand dress that this is meant to be, someone will let me know. What I am certain about is the song that she sings. So, if the whole cabaret vibe of the club wasn't obvious enough, and the fact that she is singing a slower, vampy, romantic song at one of those classic microphones, the introduction to the song gives it away pretty quickly that this is going to be Maybe This Time, or a thinly veiled parody of Maybe This Time. Thematically, the lyrics are very much the same idea. Structurally, the song does a similar thing where we have this sort of lighter touch on the first version and then it repeats, and we give it a little bit more oomph, just like Maybe This Time does, but there's bits of the melody that also sound like another Kander and Ebb song, But the World Goes Round. After her performance, we see Josh leaving the club. He passes by another sign for Lloyd Street. We've gathered from previous episodes that Lloyd Street and Webber Street intersect in an homage to Andrew Lloyd Webber. And we see the tribe of hippies who for some reason are following him around the streets of Schmicago. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a hint of What's the Buzz from Jesus Christ Superstar playing underneath, perhaps because these hippie characters, as we come to find out, are searching for their new leader. They feel as though Topher no longer has time for them because he is only interested in one particular female follower. This is giving very Jesus and Mary Magdalene vibes, where the other disciples get a little bit jealous. In any case, Josh's ability to give a little bit of practical and medical advice makes them instantly very enamored with him, and they declare him their new leader. What follows is one of the best songs of the entire season. This is such a great moment, and it's a culmination of everything that has happened so far. So this song is given to our narrator character Titus Burgess, and immediately from the orchestrations of the introduction, we can tell that this is going to be a Heaven on Their Minds, Judas-esque kind of a number. Titus sings about Josh becoming intoxicated with his newfound status as the tribe leader, while Melissa is simultaneously becoming more intoxicated with her fame as the nightclub performer. We hear a familiar kind of Heaven on Their Minds guitar riff, and we also get Titus belting out the names Josh and Melissa, which is familiar of Judas singing Jesus. I'm not going to try and do it on pitch because it's after midnight, and if we're being perfectly honest, I can't sing it at any hour of the day. What I love about Schmigadoon is they take these musical theatre tropes and then just twist them and show them up for how ridiculous they are, because he's standing next to them and singing about them, and so they reply, and he actually sings, "It was a rhetorical question." Classic Schmigadoon sense of humour that I've been enjoying these past few episodes. But there is another section to this song as well. It is not all Heaven on Their Mindsy. There's a little bit of a slower section, which I couldn't place initially, but he's singing the word fame on this sort of a rising arpeggio, and I think it's a tribute to the musical Fame because it's giving me the melody from I Pray I Make BA. It's also a little bit Prepare Ye from Godspell, but I do think it's probably more of a Fame reference. Let me know what you think about that one in the comments. And before we can reach the end of this number, we get a wonderful split screen moment with a counterpoint section with all of the different characters singing at the same time. It's one of those classic musical theatre moments where all of these different melodies overlap, so we can check in with all of the characters simultaneously because everything is bubbling to this tense boiling point. Think We Don't Talk About Bruno, but of course it's been done lots more than that. It happens in The Producers, it happens in Les Mis with One Day More, but that was not the first musical to implement this. One of its earliest utilizations was in West Side Story with the Tonight Quintet. And it's in this part of the song that we get our regular cameo of the I'll drink to that lady. She is Joanne from Company, and she is part of this as well. She looks a little bit angrier than the last time we saw her. Now, some of you in the comments have been working on a theory, and I'm on board with this, that she is actually Dooley Blight's estranged wife, who he believes to be dead, and she is just roaming the streets drinking cocktails, not unlike the beggar woman from Sweeney Todd, only a slightly glitzier version. What she sings in this, from what I can tell, are lyrics lifted straight out of Ladies Who Lunch. She says something about a hat, and she's literally sings "Everybody Dies." Now, it's not long after this that we have another song. Josh and Melissa return to Jenny Banks's apartment, where they are confronted by Jenny and Topher, both of whom are hugely upset with them. And Topher soon launches into song at Josh, which is giving us another Jesus Christ Superstar moment. We are heavy on the Jesus Christ Superstar these past 2 episodes. So much of what he's singing here mirrors the argumentative singing that Jesus and Judas do in The Last Supper. And one of my favorite things that happens here is he parodies one of the stranger lyrics from that song, in which Judas calls Jesus a faded mandarin. A faded, faded mandarin. Except because this is Schmigadoon, he calls him a sour macaroon. And all sorts of rhymes for sour. That's hilarious to me. That's one of my favourite musical theatre references they've put in, because that's really specifically for people who know these musicals. I know a lot of these references have been, but a lot of the subtler stuff could fly under the radar and people won't notice that they're seeing a reference they don't understand. This one is this strange lyric moment, and a lot of the audience watching this, I feel like, will be just as confused as Josh is, having these strange words sang to him. But I know, and now you do, it's a reference to Jesus Christ Superstar. He also does a very high "Get Out!", which I think Jesus sings in The Last Supper, but he does definitely also sing that during his whole tantrum in the temple. I'm only just processing how angry Jesus is in Jesus Christ Superstar. I mean, he's not having a good day. So having been forced to leave the apartment they were sharing with Jenny Banks, they head over to Quick Street. As a reminder, this is parodying both Easy Street from Annie and Fleet Street. Quick is synonymous with both of those words in different contexts. And they are very kindly taken in by Miss Codwell, who is literally in the process of fattening up orphans that they do not find suspicious. They are just comforted to see how much better Miss Codwell is being with the orphans. The very grateful orphans, meanwhile, bring Miss Codwell a little wrapped present with a ribbon, and she is visibly taken aback by this act of kindness, and you can see the remorse and the uncertainty flashing on her face. This is very familiar of the second act of Sweeney Todd, when Mrs. Lovett has to make some very difficult decisions around the song Not While I'm Around. I don't want to spoil Sweeney Todd for you too much, but it's a very similar kind of a moral quandary. As you do, they pop by to Dooley Blight's butcher shop, Dooley Blight being our Sweeney Todd parody character, played wonderfully by Alan Cumming. I will say, every moment he gets in this series, just fantastic. I'm ready to give him a full Sweeney revival yesterday. But they let him know that they will be staying with Miss Codwell, whereupon they notice that he has a very ostentatious new meat grinder, despite the fact he said he was having trouble acquiring meat. Later on in bed together, Josh can't sleep because he is concerned by what they may have discovered. Melissa encourages him to just forget about it. She needs to get to sleep because she has, and I quote, a 12-show day tomorrow. And I love this because this is just taking musical theatre culture of like a 2-show day to the absolute ridiculous extreme. I love you, Schmigadoon, for doing that. But Josh wins out, and they end up sneaking into Dooley Blight's butcher shop to go and see if they can find anything suspicious. They're wearing these cute matching striped pajamas in like blue and pink, giving you very masculine and feminine. I do not know the Pajama Game as a show, but is this a Pajama Game reference? It super could be. It feels like that clothing is too particular for it not to be a reference to something. Now, I was pausing this scene constantly when they were snooping around the butcher shop to look for Easter eggs while they were looking for clues. And one thing I did notice is that when they see the sausage casings on the desk that they dismiss, they say "men love meat," which is not only a hilarious pun, but it's a reference to Alan Cumming's season 1 character, Mayor Menlove. Finally, they do find what they're looking for, which is a list of the orphans' names, the same names that we heard referenced in song lyrics previously, and against that their weight and how many sausages Dooley Blight could likely turn them into. When they are discovered to be snooping around, they then have a conversation with Dooley Blight and Miss Codwell, where they remind Dooley Blight that his main priority ought to be to take down Kratt instead. Our narrator Titus Burgess, meanwhile, is on break, so he's not willing to help with any of this. He is reading a paper paper that literally says extra, extra as a headline. Like, we're putting no effort into any of this. It's just him reading such a placeholder paper that's a deliberate placeholder paper. I think that's hilarious. But between this quartet of characters, they hatch a plan to take down Octavius Kratt, using Melissa as bait. So we cut back to the club where there are two twin sisters performing on the stage. Now the credits credit these as the Bernstein sisters, Bernstein being a musical theatre composer who gave us West Side Story as well as Wonderful Town. Wonderful Town is a musical about two sisters who moved to the city from Ohio. Is this a nod to that, or are they just random twins? Who's to say? But before the episode can wrap up, we get an unexpected song, literally called Something Unexpected. This is a duet between the characters of Sergeant Rivera, who is the right-hand man of the villainous Octavius Kratt, and Madame Frau. Now, when this series was announced and they were starting to reveal some of the artwork and details were emerging, I did read that these two characters were going to have a duet. And at the time, I was expecting this to be like a Fraulein Schneider, Herr Schultz kind of later in life romantic coming together, and I'm kind of sad that that wasn't what it was, but I was pleasantly surprised by what it actually turned out to be, which is an homage to a composer I don't think we've yet really referenced. I'm talking about Burt Bacharach. Very well-known songwriter in terms of the music industry, as well as composing the score for Promises, Promises. It is unmistakably Bacharach. There's a specific moment in the score that's very punchy that reminds me of the song Knowing When to Leave from Promises, Promises, which of course Kristen Chenoweth starred in on Broadway. If we needed more of a clue that this is from the 60s, we have three 60s dressed backing singers at the end of the bar, which is another very Burt Bacharach touch. And I've said this before, but what I love about them moving into this era of musical theatre is they are following its stylistic conventions as well, and they're using this song with a nice relaxed and happy and pleasant melody with lyrics that actually mean more than they appear to. The lyrics are specifically talking about an unexpected twist, and that is what is about to unfold. We have this whole beautiful double meaning as we see Dooley Blight getting in position, ready to take his revenge on Octavius Kratt. Melissa, meanwhile, heads over to Kratt's table to go and initiate conversation and lure him back to the dressing room. He asks if she's been receiving his roses, and she replies, "Moses supposes I have," which is a reference to Singin' in the Rain and the song Moses Supposes. Moses supposes his toes are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously. Alas, it all goes a little bit wrong, and she doesn't end up luring him back to her dressing room instead, but is taken forcibly into his car, where he reveals to her that he plans to marry her, and they begin driving away as Josh shouts out after her and is caught by Sergeant Rivera. So in our penultimate episode, we get this cliffhanger. At the beginning, the two of them were so convinced that they were right on the brink of bringing happiness to everyone in Schmicago, and now things are not looking good for the couple. But those were all of the references that I caught in this episode. Like I said, let me know if there's any that I didn't spot by commenting in the comment section down below. In terms of what I actually thought of this episode, like I said, it had some of my favourite musical numbers in the series so far. I'm loving the Jesus Christ Superstar of it all, and I'm loving that they're nodding to other musicals, and we're kind of progressing further and further with those references. I'm getting the vibes from a host of other shows as well. I like that we're including Bacharach, and it's not just the same few composers. It's not all Sondheim and Kander and Ebb. The Jesus Christ Superstar parodies in particular, I think, are brilliant, because for a lot of the other shows, they're giving you visual references and location references, and for Jesus Christ Superstar, the music is distinctive enough, and the lyrics are, that they can just nod to that in the songs without having to give you a Jesus Christ Superstar looking character or that kind of a location. And their ability to do that with the songs makes me very excited about a hypothetical season 3 in which they can reference other musicals that aren't necessarily cohesive with whatever world they might decide to take us to. That's if we even get a series 3. But in this episode, it made me more intrigued about how that might work. So those have been my thoughts about this week's episode of Schmigadoon. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you do not miss my breakdown of the finale. The season is coming to an end. I've enjoyed spending this time together, and I'm so excited to tell you about all of the Easter eggs coming up next week. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day. For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!